The story of LeBron James and the 2003 Boston Summer League. 15 years ago, the NBA Summer League took place in a quaint Boston gym. Featured was a teenage rookie who was already a star attraction, LeBron James. Yet after that summer, the league went on a hiatus and never returned. This is the story of the 2003 Boston Summer League as told by those who were there. LeBron James is a Los Angeles Laker, headed west to revive Showtime and perhaps a rivalry with the Celtics. He will forever be best known as a Cleveland Cavalier, for whom the son of Akron has played in 2 stints, 11 years total, having left, come home, and left again. For 4 seasons in between, the Miami Heat were the beneficiary of his talents. He's made generous decisions, pledging $41 million to send Akron students to college, and ill-conceived decisions, like, well, the decision, ad choice advertising and invented by Teeds. He's made 14 All-Star teams, 6 All-Defensive teams, won 4 Most Valuable Player awards, and celebrated 3 NBA championships. Advertisement. His teams have reached the NBA Finals 8 straight seasons, his last conference finals defeat coming against a previous generation of Celtics, his most recent conference finals victory coming against an ascending generation of Celtics. He's in the argument as the greatest basketball player of all time. If he plays in Hollywood like he's played everywhere else, he may end the argument. But 15 years ago, the only debate about LeBron James was whether he could possibly live up to the hype. As a 17-year-old high school junior in 2002, he was featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated with the headline, "The Chosen One," and teasing text that made a hoop fan want to flip immediately to the story. High school junior LeBron James would be an NBA lottery pick right now. A year later, he was the No. 1 overall pick by his home state Cavaliers. It was in Boston, in a small gym that served as the home for a since-lost and lamented NBA Summer League, that many basketball fans began finding out what LeBron James was about, and what he was going to become. From July 14 to July 20, 2003, the Clark Athletic Center on the University of Massachusetts Boston campus was the venue for the Reebok Pro Summer League, the third of 4 legs of the NBA Summer Circuit that year. The others were Long Beach, Orlando, and Salt Lake City. 10 teams, including the Celtics and Cavaliers, participated, playing 6 games over 7 days. Early witness. The story of LeBron James and the 2003 Boston Summer League is told by those who were play-by-play advertisement. James did not make his professional debut that summer in Boston. That occurred a week previous during the Orlando League, where James played 2 games. But those early games he played in Boston, when the hype and the truth about James began proving one and the same, are a compelling part of his NBA origin story. But the 2003 Summer League wasn't just about LeBron James. It was about a pivotal time in Celtics history, with Dan Ainge just a couple of months into his job, and his first draft picks, Marcus Banks and Kendrick Perkins, showing what they could do. It was about rookies, second-year pros, journeymen, and vagabonds, some names familiar, some that never would find fame, trying to prove they had what it takes to play in the NBA. And little did we know then, but it was about a farewell. After showcasing the beginnings of one of the greatest basketball careers, we'll see, the league, after 5 years in Boston, came to a quiet end. This is the story of the 2003 Reebok Boston Summer League, as told by those who were there. Note: titles correspond with the person's employer or team that summer. The draw. Brian Windhorst, reporter, Akron Beacon Journal. The Orlando Summer League had always been in a gym with no fans. For the first game LeBron played, they played it in the old arena that has since been torn down. They got like 13,000 fans, and charged something like $5 a ticket. So Boston knew what was coming. The Boston Summer League began in 1999, with Shaw Supermarkets as a sponsor. Part of the Celtics' motivation for launching the league was to convince the NBA that Boston would be a fine host for an NBA All-Star game. There were early discussions of building a court beneath a massive tent at the Seaport Hotel and hosting it there. The Reggie Lewis Track and Athletic Center was also mentioned as a potential site. But it did not take long for the Celtics to reach an agreement with UMass Boston. Advertisement: Charlie Titus, men's basketball coach, UMass Boston. It started in the Pitino era. Rick wanted his players to play in the summer, but didn't want to spend the money to travel and put them up someplace. That was the impetus. The Celtics director of basketball operations at the time, Stu Lane, had a conversation with the mayor, Thomas Menino, and the mayor suggested that he come and see us. He did, and we developed a really good relationship. It was a situation that worked for everybody involved. The Celtics and UMass Boston meshed their staffs to make it work. The Celtics handled the programming and ticketing. UMass Boston took care of the logistics. Tickets cost $8 in the early years, but went for $15 in the summer of LeBron. In the league's first seasons, fans could wait outside the locker rooms for autographs, and players often mingled and sat in the stands in between games. But James's presence required heightened security and a less casual atmosphere. Charlie Titus: it was really quite an operation. We got to work at 6 in the morning. Nobody left here before 11 or 12 at night for the 7 days it was here. Players found the setting charmingly nostalgic, a throwback to playing in no-frills gyms during their journey to the NBA. Mo Evans, Wizards guard: the ambiance of the Boston Summer League kind of reminded me of an extension of what we all grew up with. The hot box gyms, fans up close. It was just basketball at its most purest, organic state. Eddie Gill, Spurs guard: it was like a big high school environment. All the scouts and management right there on top of you. You go for a loose ball, you're liable to end up in their laps. Marcus Banks, Celtics guard: that summer league was tight. It was classic. Brian Windhorst: I remember the crowd being totally packed in there. That and a hockey rink next door that didn't have any ice in it. LeBron James, Cavaliers swingman: man, that was a long time ago. What do I remember? I remember the gym, the atmosphere. It was old school and hot, and the fans, mostly Celtics fans, were right on top of you. It was a great environment, energetic, what you envision summer basketball being. James arrived in Boston accompanied by a level of mystery that would not be possible today. Jeff Van Gundy, Rockets coach: didn't he show up in a limo? I heard he showed up in a limo. That was the rumor. Charlie Titus: he was always on the bus with the team as far as I knew. I remember after one game the bus was pulling off and everybody was ready to go except for LeBron. He stood outside the bus and signed every autograph until every kid had one. Stephen Silas, Cavaliers coach: at that time, the internet wasn't like how it is today, where there's so much accessibility to those guys. Then, he was sort of like an urban legend. He had been on ESPN a couple of times. The Sports Illustrated cover. But nationally we hadn't gotten a feel for how good this kid really was until they actually got a chance to see him. Danny Ainge, Celtics executive director of basketball operations: I had seen LeBron play when he was in high school, so I knew he was sure to be special before I saw him in Summer League. There was no doubt in my mind that he was going to be one of the best players that ever played when I saw him as a 17-year-old. So to see him in the summer was really just a reminder of that. Stephen Silas: his basketball IQ was incredible, his passing was one of the best characteristics of the game, and his athleticism was already better than 99% of NBA players at the point. He had all the tools to be that guy. But I would be lying to saying with certainty that he would be the best ever to play. I'm sure people were saying that, but I wasn't one of those guys. Brandon Hunter, Celtics forward: I'm from Ohio, so I was aware of him pretty early. I saw him when he was a sophomore. His athleticism just then was amazing, but his basketball IQ was even better. Then I saw him again after that year, and he was at a different level after his sophomore year. He never plateaued, still hasn't. Chris Clack, Celtics swingman. I was kind of tired of hearing about all the high school kids getting hype. First time I saw him in person, I said, okay, the hype is real with this kid, Danny Ainge. There have only been a few players where you can tell when they're still a teenager that they'll be a superstar. When I saw LeBron, he was one. When I saw Kobe Bryant at a draft workout while I was coaching the Suns, and he was age 18, I knew. And when I saw Amari Stoudemire in a draft workout at 18 or 19, I knew then. Not necessarily the best of all time, but you can tell there's something special there. You can tell they were going to be multiple-time All-Stars. But you can't always tell. I remember seeing Dwayne Wade in Summer League in Orlando, and thinking he's not all that great. All of a sudden, he was unbelievable. It wasn't just James's fellow Summer Leaguers who were eager to check out his game. At least one established star, a future rival at that, came to see if the stories were true. Paul Pierce, Celtics forward. Oh yeah, I went over. I wanted to see what all the hype was about and wanted to check our draft picks to see what we had coming. At the time, Pierce told the Globe he was there just to see the Celtics picks. That other guy, James, can't help me, he said. Paul Pierce, when I played in my first All-Star game in Philly, during the 2001-02 season, there was a lot of people saying, this kid LeBron is so good, he could be in this All-Star game right now. I was like, what, man? Antoine Walker was always talking about him, telling me could be better than all of us right then. The new kids in town the draft picks Pierce wanted to scope out included guard Marcus Banks, the 13th pick in the 2003 draft, and burly 18-year-old forward Kendrick Perkins, chosen 27th overall. Banks went on to have an 8-year NBA career for 5 teams. It was Perkins who became a cornerstone, turning into a sturdy power forward on the Celtics' 2007-08 champions and earning the reputation as a beloved teammate. Chris Clack, Perk was always real quiet, but he had that mean mug on his face. Nice guy. But he was different from some of those high school kids in that he was a banger. He's still banging, just from the bench with his lips instead of on the court with his body. Laughs. Marcus Banks, Perk is the real big baby. Laughs. You can quote me saying that. I was calling Perk big baby then because this is the thing, Perk was 18 years old and he wasn't used to that NBA life. He didn't go to college. All he knew was going out on the court and playing. And that was a big thing. Perk used to cry every single game. Every single one. People would say, hey, man, what's wrong? And he was crying because he wasn't playing. Danny Ainge, Perk was such a sincere kid. I don't remember him crying on the bench, but he did love to play. Ainge had been on the job only a few weeks when the 2003 draft took place. He was hired as the Celtics executive director of basketball operations in May, the surprising announcement coming hours before Game 3 of the Celtics Eastern Conference semifinals series with the Nets tipped off. Beyond draft picks Banks, Perkins and second-rounder Brandon Hunter, the eclectic Summer League roster Ainge put together included 2001 first-round pick Edric Brown, former UCLA freshman sensation Toby Bailey, and wayward former prep star Lenny Cook. Cook was as familiar with what LeBron James could do on a basketball court as anyone. In the summer of 2001, Cook had been the hotshot high school star at the elite ABCD camp at Fairleigh Dickinson University. But James, a class behind him, vanquished Cook's team with a spectacular buzzer beater, a moment that was the foundation for his legend, and a moment that devastated Cook. Cook declared for the 2002 NBA draft, but went unselected and never played in the league. A 2013 documentary titled Lenny Cook detailed his struggles during his high school days and after his basketball dream faded. Danny Ainge, I don't remember Lenny standing out. But I don't remember how far behind he was. The guys who played with him would probably remember better. Jr. Bremer, Celtics guard, Lenny didn't have the basketball IQ, the strength or the body control that was necessary, let alone what LeBron had. In practice the talent came out. Marcus Banks, I saw Lenny practice every day. He had great talent but he just couldn't get the plays. He was street ball. He was a great creator with the ball. He was either going to put it in the basket or get someone else the opportunity. Chris Clack, we played the Cavs in the opener. Lenny didn't get a minute that game against LeBron, even when the crowd started chanting his name. I didn't know what was up, what was the extent of going on with him at the time, but I watched the documentary and now I feel kind of bad. I would have liked to have seen him get a minute. When the game was over, James took a moment to console Cook. The Cavaliers had a roster stocked with precocious talent, some that would flourish and some that would never be fulfilled. Previous prep-to-pro sensations DeJuan Wagner and Darius Miles joined James, along with former first-round pick Desagana Diop and future standouts Carlos Boozer and Jason Capono. Jared Ward, Cavs forward, DeJuan scored over 100 points in a high school basketball game. Deadpan pause, that's hard to do. Darius could jump out of the gym. Carlos Boozer was just at the beginning of the star he would become. Capono was an exceptional shooter. It was a fun team to be around. Practices were up-tempo. Alley-oops were flying all over the place. Ward was a compelling addition to the Cavs roster in his own right. In 1994, he won the Naismith Award as the top high school player in the country. He chose to attend the University of Michigan, where he was in a group of big-name recruits expected to continue the tradition of the Fab Five. But as he put it, an avalanche of injuries altered his career. He never played in the NBA, but became a journeyman player valued for his thoughtful perspective. Jared Ward, my agent called me before the draft and said the Cavaliers are interested in bringing you in. I said, really? For what? He said, for multiple reasons. But there is a guy who is probably going to be the first pick in the draft and Cleveland is going to have an opportunity to take him and he's really good. At this time I was out of the country and I hadn't been following high school hoops. I wasn't up on who LeBron James really was or what he was all about. So I started doing some research and I was like, there is no way this kid is 18 years old. That's the body of a grown man. A lot of times I found myself being paired with LeBron. Tried to mentor him any way I could. Me being a former National Player of the Year, I kind of understood some of the stresses that he was going through. But he didn't need a lot of guidance. He was mature beyond his years. Brian Windhorst's thing about LeBron was, every time he'd go to a bigger stage, he'd exceed expectations. That's why he became so big. Every time he got to a moment where it would be like, he can never handle this, not only did he handle it, he blew it out of the water. He was the MVP of the state tournament as a 15-year-old freshman. Then to ABCD camp as a 16-year-old when most of the people there were 17-year-olds, including Lenny Cook. The perception was, Lenny Cook is the best player, and not only will he beat LeBron, he will destroy him. LeBron destroyed Lenny Cook. And then to the ESPN national TV game, where it was like, okay, now we'll see this kid fail. He put up a bunch of highlights. In front of an overcapacity Clark Athletic Center house of over 2,500, James dazzled in his Boston debut, scoring 25 points, grabbing 9 rebounds, and dishing out 5 assists. He could not deliver a victory, however, as second-year guard J.R. Bremer scored 28 points for the Celtics in their 87-84 win. Chris Clack, Jr. had a great game. But what I remember is that LeBron really got him once. Was guarding him on the right wing, our bench was right in front of him. LeBron caught the ball, spun off of JR, went baseline and left him behind, and I thought, yeah, this is no kid. This is a grown man out there, JR. Bremer, it must have been a switch or something. Laughs, I really think it was a switch. Somehow I ended up guarding him. It ended up being a dunk. He caught me leaning, spun on me baseline, and dunked one-handed. You could say I got postered there. I was his first pro poster victim. Bremer did something to leave an impression on the Cavs. By the end of July, he had been traded to Cleveland. And the SP goes to. After James faced the Celtics in the opener, he missed the Cavaliers' next 2 games against the Nets and Mavericks for a reason that stands as a telling measure of how famous he already was. He left Boston to attend the ESPYs in Los Angeles. James was nominated for 2 awards, including Best Newcomer, an award won by Tom Brady the previous year. James lost to Alfonso Soriano, who hit 39 home runs for the Yankees. Brian Windhorst, I'm guessing he was probably the first Summer League guy ever to do that. James was actually joined at the ESPYs by fellow Summer Leaguer and first-round pick T.J. Ford of the Bucks. In James's brief absence, the Cavaliers lost to the Nets 77-69. The Nets were led by former University of Connecticut star Donnie Marshall, who had 22 points, and second-year forward Brian Scalabrine, who had 10 points and 7 rebounds. Donnie Marshall, Nets swingman. We didn't have the social media then, but all of those high school guys were glorified to the nth degree. And not all of them were going to make it. It's like when a $100 million movie comes out and it could be a hit, or it could be a flop. You never really know until you see it. When I was at UConn, Felipe Lopez was one of those guys, coming into the Big East at St. John's. Everyone talked about him. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And then you go at him, and you have the mindset of, you haven't done anything at this level. I sympathized more with the knowledge that if it didn't work out there were people waiting to tear LeBron down. But you could tell it was going to work out immediately, that he was going to redefine things with his size and ability to handle the ball. Laughs, there were not going to be many more 6'6" forwards like me unless we learned how to play the point. That was clear. Brian Scalabrine, Nets forward, man, I love to play in that league. Some guys, I think they looked at it like a punishment or some kind of bad thing. I never looked at it that way. Are you kidding me? I could never replicate that back home in pickup games. I was really into Summer League. Scalabrine averaged 14 points, 5.5 rebounds and 4 assists per game. Brian Scalabrine, I played great too. I was like, I'll never be able to do this in the NBA, I'll never be a 30-minute-a-game guy in the NBA. It was my chance to still do what I did in college. It was the greatest thing. Donnie Marshall, I was already 29 years old. Actually, he turned 31 while the league was underway, so I just remember feeling like the elder statesman. So I was that guy in the Summer League with all the veteran tricks. I remember rather than trying to dunk on a guy, I'd take the contact, get the foul and one. Or I'd try to take the charge rather than block the shot. The young guys would want to go a million miles an hour, and I'd just remember what NBA journeyman Sedale Threatt would say when we'd play in my hometown of Seattle in the summer, be a straight line guy. Don't play around. When you try to look cute, bad things happen. Laughs, I already had the rec league mindset. Still without James in their third game, the Cavaliers, led by Wagner and Darius Miles, got their first win of the league by scoring the final 13 points in an 87-83 victory over the Mavericks. They got their first with James in the lineup the following day, a 77-69 win over the Hawks in which James filled out the box score with 15 points, 9 rebounds and 6 assists. Dan Dickau, Hawks guard, I remember playing against him, and I don't want to say not, but you're thinking in the moment, he's 18 years old and he's this good already, what's he going to be like when? He's really good. The biggest shots of that victory were made by a guard named Hollis Price, who went undrafted despite leading Oklahoma to the 2002 Final Four and being named a second-team All-America selection in '03. Hollis Price, Cavs guard, I've got a story. I got a steal and I went and scored my layup. LeBron was behind me but my guy was chasing me down. Their team called timeout after I made the shot. Steven Silas, who coached us. He ran over to me and was like, "Man, throw the ball off the backboard." I'm like, "What are you talking about throwing it off the backboard? I'm coming from a winning program. I want to win. I'm not worried about highlights and all this stuff." So we're walking back to the sideline, and LeBron heard the whole thing, and he's like, "Man, expletive that. Score the ball," which let me know he was all about winning. He had my back on that one. James and Ford, with any effects of their coast-to-coast and back SB's adventure behind them, squared off in each team's fifth game, the most anticipated game of the league after the Celtics-Cavs opener. But there wasn't much suspense. The Bucks routed the Cavs 100-80. James had 14 points, 9 rebounds and 5 assists, while the speedy Ford, chosen 8th overall out of the University of Texas, contributed 10 points, 11 assists, 6 rebounds, and 2 steals as the Bucks used a 16-1 third-quarter run to pull away. Terrell McIntyre, Bucks guard, TJ put on a show in Boston. He was small, but he was fast as a lightning bolt, and he put on a show before the game, throwing down all these crazy dunks. He won him over pretty early. He was definitely the fan favorite during that summer league. They were chanting, "TJ's better," at LeBron. Ford played 429 games for 4 teams over 8 NBA seasons, a spine injury abbreviating a promising career. The end, and a beginning. The Cavaliers did not win the championship. Neither did the Celtics. Both teams went 2-4, the Cavs concluding with an 80-76 loss to Juan Dixon, 24 points, and the Wizards. James ended his week-long introduction to Boston with a clang, shooting just 2 of 14 and missing a pair of free throws that would have tied the game with 15.6 seconds left. The Celtics concluded their Boston run with an 82-67 loss to the Nets. Lenny Cook had 14 points and 13 rebounds in the loss. The Spurs, coached by Mike Budenholzer and apparently as polished and prepared in the summer as they were during their championship-winning regular season, went 6-0, edging Scalabrine's Nets, who finished 5-1. Eddie Gill, Spurs guard, everyone has their own agenda in terms of getting recognized in a league like this. It's hard to get a real team to go out there and play together. I thought we were able to play with some unity. We had cohesion with that group. You always want to be with a winner. People will notice winning for all the right reasons. Spurs standouts included Gill, Udonis Haslem and Devin Brown, all of whom found measures of NBA success. But one Spur missed the summer's star attraction. A.J. Guyton, Spurs guard, "I don't know anything about LeBron James being in that summer league. I really don't. I don't remember. I can't believe I missed it. I'm pissed." 15 years later, the league itself is missed by those who were there. No one knew it then, but that would be its last summer in Boston. It was put on a hiatus in 2004 because of the complicated logistics of having the Democratic National Convention in the city at the same time. The hiatus never ended.